Welcome to Shreveport Connection with Tommy. This video is on your raw results for July 20th, 2020. Birthdays, July 20th, Adam Rose, born 1979. July 21st, birthdays, Fabian Eichner, 1990. July 22nd, birthdays, Fabulous Moon Law, 1923. David Von Erich, 1958. Shawn Michaels, 1965. Fandango, 1981. Kenny King, 1981. And rounding out birthday for July 22nd, Akira Tozawa, 1985. Actually, Massaro starred in a music video about suicide prevention just before taking her own life in 2019. The name of the song is Choose Song, and it was written by Massaro's close friend, Brian Orlando, who talked about it when he joined the Wrestling Inc. daily podcast at this link. Ironically enough, today is Chris Cornell's birthday, and the song was written after Chris Cornell passed away. I was just really taken aback by the fact that somebody's music who saved my life too many times couldn't find the strength to save his own. The lyrics to the song were me working my way through those feelings, and then I sat on them for a while, said Orlando. I had known Ashley for quite some time, and I had been trying to get her involved in my radio station for quite some time. But we were never able to work out the details, as she always had something going on, or I couldn't get my boss to sit down with her for an interview. Then around Christmas of 2017, she helped me out with a charity broadcast I was doing for Angela's House, which helps medically fragile children. She was great and did a lot of broadcasts, and the phone started to ring. Was that really Ashley? And I'm like, yeah. So that got the boss gears turning about bringing her on to become a jock for our station. Fast forward a year, I showed Brendan B. Brown the song that I wrote for Chris Cornell. We sat in his attic in Long Island for about 7 hours, and he fleshed out the demo. We sent it to a couple of friends, Vinny Dombrowski from Sponge and Kevin Martin from Candlebox. And throughout the course of the year, we made the song. We noted that when Ashley came on board as a DJ, he found it funny that she was at first nervous to talk on the mic after doing it for years in wrestling. She took to working at the radio station quickly and was always asking what she could do to get better. The big fear was that this big TV star came into a local radio station, and she wanted her to take over. It was the furthest thing from that, as all she wanted to do was learn. Brendan started to get involved with GCW and the Joy Janela stuff, revealed Orlando, and I don't know how it came up, but I said, hey, I have the song. Would you check it out? And I believe it was Ashley that said, are you going to do a music video? I had never thought about it. And then we came up with the concept of the GoPros and carpool karaoke. In casual conversation, I asked her if she wanted to be a part of it, and she couldn't have been more thrilled that I asked. Orlando then recalled that Ashley said about the message behind a music video on suicide prevention. What I remember specifically about what she said, the only thing I could quote from the conversation at the studio is, I've had my own struggles with this. I would love to help. Recalled Orlando. Ashley passed away on May 16, 2019, which was 10 days before her 40th birthday. Orlando shared his reaction to hearing about her passing. It was surreal. I knew it happened immediately, and it wasn't like I couldn't fully process the news. But I couldn't fully process the sheer irony of everything. We were just a couple of weeks away from releasing the video. I had spoken to her that day, and you can go back and look for signs, but they really weren't there, stated Orlando. Just a couple of weeks before I showed her a rough copy of the video. We had met at a car dealership so she could get her daughter a car. I had been going through a divorce, and Ashley was truly one of my closest allies during it. Every time I told somebody I was getting divorced, it was, what happened? What did you do? When I told Ashley it was, how can I help? Are you okay? She was friends with my ex-wife, too, and there was no judgment. After we went and picked out cars, we sat and talked for a while, and I just remember her being so honest and so accepting to everything I told her about my divorce. Then we sat and watched the video, and from what I remember, she thought it was fantastic. Obviously, someone who starred in a suicide prevention video committing suicide would affect the release of the video. Orlando detailed his immediate thoughts on what to do with the Choose song video after Ashley's passing. I immediately scrapped it as the whole thing just felt disgusting, revealed Orlando. I wanted nothing to do with it. I wasn't even thinking at the moment about how other people would react to it, as it just seemed completely wrong. There was nothing about this thing that I wanted to touch. You have a suicide prevention video with one of your closest friends in it. Here's the start of the video, and she takes her life. Everything about it was wrong. He said that no one asked him about the video for a couple of weeks, but then Kevin from Candlebox, who collaborated, said that they should release the video to create awareness. It was a really good point, but I still wanted nothing to do with it. I think maybe I watched the video 3 times over the course of that year. Then COVID-19 happened, and we put together a telethon for the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention, who were going to be the beneficiaries for the song once we release it, said Orlando. The idea of the telethon was that everybody was focusing on the nurses and doctors and all the heroes. But what about the people sitting home so they weren't infecting people? What about them? They're heroes too, and they're sitting in the silence and don't have anybody to talk to. So that telethon was all about reaching out to them and showing them that all of us are sitting at home. Brandon and Vinny and Kevin were a part of it. We had Zach from the Nixons and the Goo Goo Dolls and Noah Cyrus. It was a really cool thing. Orlando then talked about why he originally decided to release the song and video. The telethon was a big part because the idea of the song was that with music, you're never alone. There's a brighter note tomorrow, and choose the end to your song, said Orlando. Once the telethon happened, Vinny reached out to me maybe 2 weeks later and said, "Hey, cuz, the work with the telethon was good. Would you be releasing the video?" I said, "Ben, it's been this long. Why now?" We went through this case. The suicide hotline traffic in Michigan was up 1,000%. People are really unraveling because there's nowhere to go right now. There's no gyms, no restaurants, and music was the only thing we had. He goes, "I watched the video the other day, and I think the message is still right." They agreed that the first thing that they needed to do was talk to Massaro family about it. He met with Ashley's daughter, who works at the radio station, and set up an Italian lunch. That turned out to be a feast. We talked about why Ashley wanted to do it, and Ashley's mom said, "Look, Brian, this really isn't my decision. Ashley wanted to do this, and she's in the video for a reason. This is what my daughter wanted, and these were her wishes." We watched it, and everybody had a positive reaction to it. Vinny called and explained himself and said, "There's no pressure. If you guys don't want to do this, we won't talk about it again." But they agreed. So we waited a couple of weeks to try to figure out the right way to do it, and finally said, "Screw it," and put it out, said Orlando. He then talked about the overwhelmingly positive reaction from the fans. So far, very little promotion. We have about 14,000 views. On YouTube, you can vote. Thumbs up or thumbs down. And we have 140 thumbs up and only 1 thumbs down, which on the internet is impossible. The fact that you only have 1 negative reaction is fantastic, said Orlando. You can follow Brian on Twitter at Tattoo and Talk. Brian's full interview aired part of the weekly podcast at this link. Here's a new day in the life of a WWE Superstar video from Lana's personal YouTube channel at this link. The video features a behind-the-scenes look at Lana's trip to the Performance Center in Orlando for a recent Raw TV taping, apparently for the June 29th episode. The video also shows her husband, Rusev, picking her up from the airport. And if you don't know, Rusev was released. Yeah. My opinion is exactly rough. Today's WWE tapings at the Performance Center in Orlando, Florida, have been delayed. WWE is scheduled to begin the tapings at Raw around 1 p.m., but as of 2:06 p.m. Eastern Time, they still have not started to tape any content. According to PW Insider, WWE officials were reportedly deep into reworking their original plans for the tapings. It was also noted that the rewrites were due to talent originally written into plans for the show no longer being available to perform. It's also possible that negative feedback to Sunday's The Horror Show and Extreme Rules pay-per-view led to creative changes. WWE was scheduled to tape several shows earlier today in Orlando, specifically Raw, next week's Raw, Raw Talk, and Main Event. WWE producer Adam Pearce has apparently defeated the coronavirus. Pearce took to Twitter and posted a photo at this link showing the virus down in the ring as he stood outside the ring with the NWA World Heavyweight title that he held on 5 occasions. Once for 336 days, once for 35 days, once for 357 days, once for 252 days, and for 90 days in his last reign. And in that link, hashtag, and still, Pearce captured the photo, which you could see at the link. The 2015 NWA Hall of Famer announced back on June 25th that he had tested positive for the COVID-19. At the same time, WWE was dealing with an outbreak within the company. Pearce will likely return to work at the Performance Center very soon. Eric Young has been busy this past week after having sat on the sidelines for some time in the WWE. After debuting amongst a slew of other talents at Slammiversary this past weekend, go to the results for that. Eric Young stopped by Busted Open for his first interview at this link since leaving WWE. He spoke to Bully and Tommy Dreamer about what his time at NXT and WWE was like and where all went wrong. It was kind of time to move on, Eric said, regarding him leaving what was in the TNA at the time, the structure of the current company. I felt like I had kind of done everything, you know. I was going to be allowed to do there. Obviously, the WWE is a place I wanted to work my whole entire career. That's what I grew up watching. That was the goal. Being goal-oriented is a theme for Eric throughout the interview. Going further back, he looked back on those goals starting back in his early days in TNA, and even likened those times to being like ECW in a lot of ways. He did say that Impact is in a better spot than ever now, but his goals weren't always so lofty in the early days, probably because they actually get paid now. When I started wrestling, my first goal was to sign a contract and say I do this for a living. And signing my first contract in TNA Wrestling, I could officially say I was a pro wrestler. Young humbly admitted, you know, I played wrestler on the weekend, but in 2004, I signed my first contract, and then I could say, this is what I do for a living. That was my first and only goal. And my other goal was to make it to the WWE. That was a huge reason for me wanting to go there. Reminiscing on the career he amassed in the WWE, Eric speaks fondly of his days in NXT and refers to Triple H as a key figure in that. Sanity was clearly a fond memory, and he played a role in helping that grow into what it was. Well, the tag team went on their merry ways. I think Killian Dane is the only one left of that tag team that is still in NXT. The NXT part went great. I was treated well. Hunter and me worked very closely on the development of Sanity and the group. I really felt like I had a say in what went on. Obviously not the final say, but was listened to. Eric explained. At the time, Sanity was one of the top acts in the whole company. I could be put anywhere on the card and be utilized in a good way. Things would quickly change with the time on the main roster. Young clearly got more frustrated after the move and is happy for the days spent there being behind him. Then we transitioned to the main roster, and I mean, you and everyone knows how that went. It did not go well, Eric stated. Sometimes you fall out of favor, and it's nothing you did or didn't do. I never changed who I was. I'm not going to that. It's not who I am. I'm not a political person. Never have been. The truth is, a bunch of guys that have left there have talked about this, and we don't need to go on and on about it. But the system is broken. It's hard to get a word in edgewise. Even when you're doing nothing, it feels like you're fixing people's mistakes all day. There was no creativity. They want everyone to do things the same, and be the same, and bulk the same, and sell the same. And there is millions of rules. Those change daily. It's really hard to understand what's going on and why it's going. The system is flawed, and I would say that to anyone there. I would say it to Vince McMahon himself. Eric explained that he wasn't willing to wait hours to speak to Vince, knowing that he was a 40-year-old man and not a child waiting for an adult attention for a few minutes. He said that he didn't take it personally and admitted that Vince was always respectful with him when they did speak. Eric noted that they had 2 long conversations, but ultimately he almost felt out of love with wrestling due to his time on the main roster. Wrestling is my first love. There was a point in my life where nothing mattered except for pro wrestling. I lived it, slept it, breathed it, bled, tears, all of it was about wrestling. So yeah, I mean, I loved it, and I can say, like I didn't watch any wrestling when I was on the main roster. Young stated with dismay. I would work on Raw and not even watch the show. It's hard when something like that is crushed. It's a place that everything amazing should be happening every second of every day, and it's not. It's a disaster in how it's organized. It's hard to love wrestling in that kind of environment. Eric stated that all the flaws are created by one person. However, that isn't going to change. However, he said that he is back to loving wrestling again. He also added on a similarly positive note that his soul hasn't felt this good in a long time and seems to be excited for what is in store for him with Impact Wrestling. And I could even almost say, since his FKA wife, ODB, if they put them back together. Storyline or whatever. But it's wrestling. Anything can happen. Raw opens up from the USA Network with a video package on an eye-for-eye match from the horrible horror show at Extreme Rules. Pay-per-view on Sunday. We cut to the standard Raw intro video. Live from the silent tape delay from the Performance Center in Orlando, Florida. As Tom Phillips welcomes us, he's joined the ringside by Samoa Joe and Byron Saxton. They hype the show as the developmental trainees in the crowd cheer. We go right to the ring. Out comes Seth Rollins and Murphy. Tom gives a storyline injury update on Rey Mysterio coming out of the eye for an eye loss on Sunday, noting that he is being treated at a local medical facility and looks to be retaining his vision. It looks real. Rollins takes a mic as a chant breaks out from the talent in the crowd. Rollins names the injury Rey suffered on Sunday Globe location. He goes on about stipulation and having to remove Rey's eyeball from its socket to get the win. You didn't see no eyeball, so it didn't happen. Rollins says what happened, the visual, will stay with him for the rest of his life. And he also showed him throwing up after that little segment several times. The shame chant starts back up, and Rollins says this is affecting him as well. That image will stay with him in his memories forever. It was disgusting, violent, and barbaric. More than he expected. It made him sick to his stomach, figuratively and literally. Rollins has been asked if he regrets what happened. He doesn't mean to be obtuse, but he has to answer a question with a question. Does the WWE Universe regret what they've done to him? The crowd boos Rollins and goes on about how this wasn't his decision. WWE Universe made him into what he is. Rollins goes on and says, we can't dwell on the past. The beauty of this is now that Ray is out of sight and Raw is free to fulfill its potential. The greater good of the show can happen, will happen, and there's nobody left to stand in the way of the greater good. Music erupts and out comes Aleister Black to a pop. Black speaks from the stage and says, Rollins orchestrated all of this. This is all on his hands. Black is here to rectify all of this. He drops the mic and walks down, but here comes Murphy. Black drops him on the ramp. Murphy comes right back and pulls Black from the ring. They brawl at ringside as Rollins looks on. Black unloads and sends Murphy into the plexiglass barrier several times. Black destroys Murphy and launches him over the announce table for another pop. Black hits the ring and Rollins retreats to the floor. They tear each other down and we go to commercial. First match of the night, Seth Rollins versus Aleister Black. Back to the ring, they're going at it. Seth Rollins unloads and turns it around, dropping Aleister Black. Rollins yells at the referee as Murphy looks on from ringside. Black comes back with a big kick. Black mounts more offense, sending Rollins to the floor for a breather. Black follows and keeps the attack going. Rollins turns it around and sends Black into the announce table. Rollins brings him back in and hits the sling blade in the middle of the ring. Rollins drops Black again and mounts him with strikes. Rollins drops a knee. Crowd challenges Riley, but Rollins keeps Black down. Rollins focuses on the injured right arm, using the ropes and stopping it. Rollins with a kick to the arm now. Black fights out of the corner, but Rollins takes him down, kicks him in the back for a 2 count. Rollins with more offense, focusing on the arm, and another takedown to keep Black grounded. Rollins then shoves Black arm first in the turnbuckles. Black ends up coming back, but sending Rollins to the floor. Rollins comes back and springboards in, but rolls through as Black moves. Black attacks and looks to mount and come back. Black with a big strike, and then a shot to knock Murphy off the apron. Black goes for the moonsault, but Rollins blocks it. Black avoids the stomp and comes right back with a Black mass. Black is slow to capitalize due to his arm hurting. Murphy hits the ring, and Black takes him out, allowing Rollins to regroup and roll to the floor for a breather. Black then drops Murphy with a Black blast, sending him back out. Go to commercial. Back for the break. Black is in control. Rollins dodges Black mass. Rollins with a super kick, another kick, as they both go down in the middle of the ring. More back and forth. Rollins springboards in with a knee, but Black dodges it. Black comes right back with a kick to the face. They take on some more, and Rollins drops Black by his hurt arm. Rollins follows up with a stomp. Rollins is slow to crawl over, but he does make the pin for the win. After the match, Rollins stands tall as the music plays. Murphy joins him in the ring to go to replays. Black is still down in the ring as Rollins and Murphy exit up the ramp to booze. Rollins turns back and looks back at the referee, checking on Black. In the ring, Rollins orders Murphy to hit the ring and attack Black while he's out. Black gets double teamed now as the moves continue. They bring back Black to the floor and launch him into the barrier a few times. Rollins taunts Black now as Murphy holds him next to the ring post. Rollins yells in Black's face and continues to focus on the arm. Using the ring post and the apron, Black is down on the ground in pain. Rollins tries to intimidate the announcers now. Rollins slams Black's arm into the top of the announce table several times. They take the top of the announce table and drop it on Black. Rollins taunts the crowd some more while Murphy holds Black down with the injured arm on top of the announce table. Rollins taunts Black and asks him where his friends are now. Who's here to save you? The Messiah is Rollins. Delivers a big stomp to Black's arm while Murphy holds it on the top of the announce table. Black screams out in pain as the moves pick up. Music starts back up, and Rollins and Murphy head to the back. Tom shows us how MVP declared himself to be the new WWE US champion at Extreme Rules by forfeit, as Apollo Crews was unable to compete due to a back injury. Tom confirms Crews is still the champion. We cut backstage to Hall of Famer Ron Simmons with MVP and Bobby Lashley. Simmons says he knows they're going to do things their way, but he wants them to know that there is a better way. They do a show of respect, and Simmons walks off. No dang segment. Actually, let us speak. 24/7 champion R-Truth appears. He tells MVP that he has a nice-looking replica title belt around his waist. MVP dismisses that idea and asks Truth if he wants to go to the ring with him. Truth doesn't want Lashley to put him in a full Nelson. Truth turns around to Shelton Benjamin, leveling him and laying him out. The referee appears and Shelton covers to win the title. Shelton is now your 24/7 champion. Shelton stands tall with the title and asks MVP if he'd like to go to the ring with him. Absolutely. MVP and Benjamin and Lashley walks off and we got a commercial. Back for the ring, out comes MVP, Bobby Lashley, and your new 24/7 champion, Shelton Benjamin. MVP is still in possession of Apollo Crews' U.S. title belt. MVP talks about the horror show at Extreme Rules and says he didn't even break a sweat in becoming the new champion. Tom confirms Crews is still the champion. The crowd boos MVP. MVP mocks Crews for staying home and nursing his wounds instead of being the fighting champion he said he'd be. He mentions how Crews was injured in the recent full Nelson attack by Lashley. MVP goes on about how they were beat up on Ricochet and Cedric Alexander tonight. The two hard-headed kids who won't listen. Then they're going to celebrate their new goal. Music interrupts and out comes Cedric and Ricochet. Cedric runs MVP down but says he was relevant back in 2006. They go on about MVP and his crew being pathetic. A bunch of chumps. Cedric says they have been champions in WWE before and will become champions again on their own without MVP's help. MVP says he sees the hurt business when he looks at the trio in the ring. But he sees the little kids who could be at catering when he looks at Cedric and Ricochet. Then MVP says their buddy Apollo Crews didn't show up to help them out. He will allow them to pick any combination to face in the tag team action. Cedric says they do have someone to team with tonight who is returning to Raw. Ricochet goes on and introduces Mustafa Ali. Hey, guess what? He wrestles, or he comes to the ring wearing his mask. But at least you can breathe. He can breathe through it. Lashley charges the ramp, but Ali, Ricochet, and Cedric fight him off. They hit the ring next and send MVP and Shelton retreating to safety. Lashley looks on from the ramp. Ali, Cedric, and Ricochet pose in the ring, telling the others to bring it. We'll go to commercial. And the match is up next. Back to the ring. All 6 men in action already underway. Lashley and Ricochet go at it. Alexander tags in, and Lashley gets the upper hand. Lashley levels Cedric and takes him to the corner. Lashley tags in. The 24/7 champion, Shelton Benjamin, for the double team in the corner. Shelton works Cedric over for a 2 count. MVP tags in and beats Cedric down in the corner. MVP with a suplex on Cedric. MVP keeps Cedric down and tries for a few quick pin attempts. The crowd rallies and Cedric tries to turn it around, but MVP clubs him and drives him into the mat for another 2 count. MVP brings it to the corner and Shelton tags back in for a quick double team. Shelton levels Cedric with a running clothesline. Shelton levels Cedric again for another pin attempt. The crowd tries to rally now. Lashley comes back in with a long suplex to Cedric. Lashley stalks Cedric and hits a big spear in the corner. MVP tags himself in and hits a running big boot in the corner. Very similar to the broski kick. Zack Ryder. Cedric goes down and MVP stands over him, taunting him to booze. MVP then hits the balling elbow drop, but Cedric kicks out at 2. And then MVP mounts Cedric with strikes, showing frustration. MVP with another 2 count. Ricochet finally comes in and unloads on Benjamin. Mustafa Ali tags in and keeps Benjamin down. The heels roll to the floor for a breather as Ali and his crew look on from the ring. Commercial break. Back for the break, Benjamin drives Ricochet into the mat for a 2 count. We see how Benjamin turns it around with a big knee strike during the break. Benjamin grounds Ricochet with a headlock now. Ricochet breaks free with a jawbreaker, but Benjamin still makes a tag. MVP comes in and works on Ricochet's taped knee. MVP works Ricochet over while he's down, mocking and taunting him to booze. Lashley tags back in and knocks Ricochet to the floor. Lashley drives Ricochet back in the barrier. Lashley brings it back in and continues to dominate Ricochet. Lashley distracts the referee, allowing MVP to hit Ricochet with a sheep shot. Shelton comes back in, but Ricochet finally gets an opening. Ricochet with a big drop kick for a pop. MVP and Ali tag at the same time as the crowd pops. Ali unloads and drop kicks MVP away. Ali with shots in the corner now. Ali with a big kick from the apron. Ali launches himself in and drops MVP face first with X Factor for a 2 count as Lashley makes a save. Lashley goes for the Dominator on Ali, but he slides out. Ali sends Lashley out to the floor. Ricochet flies, but Lashley grabs him by his throat. Cedric also flies out, but Lashley has him by the throat now. Ali leaps out and sends Lashley over the announce table. Benjamin takes out Ali. Ricochet flies and takes Benjamin down to the floor. Ali returns to the ring, but MVP hits him with a huge knee to the gut. MVP unloads in the corner. Ali dodges the running boot in the corner and then hits him with a neck breaker. Ali goes up top for the 450 on MVP and gets a pinfall. 6-man tag winners, Mustafa Ali, Cedric Alexander, and Ricochet. After the match, Ali's music plays as Ricochet and Cedric join him in the middle of the ring for their mini celebration. We got a replays. We got hype for tonight's unsanctioned match, Randy Orton versus Big Show. As Orton is backstage now, he talks about some of the big moments from his career, but the one he always sees when he shuts his eyes is the recent chair shot to the Hall of Famer, Edge, while he was down. Orton goes on about how he's been close to people like Edge, Christian, and Big Show, but now he gets satisfaction from hurting them. Orton goes on and says he will punt kick Show in the skull tonight, and he will immensely enjoy ending Show's career once and for all. We'll go to commercial. Back for the break, we see Hall of Famer Ron Simmons backstage again talking to the Viking Raiders. Tom leads us through a video package on the Big Show's career. We get more hype for tonight's unsanctioned match. Announcers are joined by a somber Christian now by satellite. Joe asks how he's doing since the recent unsanctioned match with Randy Orton. Christian knew what he was getting himself into, but he wasn't expecting what happened, and how WWE Hall of Famer Ric Flair was weaponized. It didn't get any lower than that, and he will never look at Orton and Flair the same, and he's not sure if he will ever be the same. Christian goes on about Big Show's match tonight and what he and Orton did last month in their match. Christian doesn't feel good at all, but he'd go through it all again if it meant making Orton pay. Christian can't wait to watch Big Show destroy Orton later on. Show Schreiber backstage with Bianca Belair. Show asks about teaming with Ruby Riott to defeat the Iconics last week. Belair brags about how good she is and says her ride to the top of the business will be quick. She just wanted to show out last week. She goes on, but Peyton Royce interrupts. Royce dismisses Schreiber and calls Belair the dumbest of all time. Royce goes on, but the insults, but Riott appears and taunts Royce for Billy Kay not being here. Royce says Kay is off handling business. Probably COVID-19 business. 2 weeks off. They continue having words, and Royce calls Liv Morgan trash. Riott threatens Royce if she brings up Liv's name one more time. Belair with more trash talking and mocking in Royce's face. Belair and Riott walk off together with Royce fuming. And your matchup is next, Peyton Royce versus Ruby Riott. Back to the break, Peyton was out by herself. Ruby was also out. Back and forth start. Royce takes control early on and beats Riott around. Royce mounts Riott and talks some trash. More back and forth, but now Royce gets the upper hand again. Royce wraps Riott up in the ropes and sends her back to the mat. Royce works Riott around and taunts her for being a loser and having no friends. Royce beats Riot while she's down in the middle of the ring now. Royce continues to dominate and covers for a 2 count. Showing frustration. Now, Riot gets the opening and looks to mount some offense. Royce blocks the roll up, but Riot keeps going for a 2 count. Royce comes right back with a big kick that stuns Riot. Royce goes up top, but has to roll through because Riot moved out of the way. Royce turns back around and charges, but Riot follows up with a Riot kick for the pin and the win. Winning the match will be Riot. After the match, Riot stands tall as the music plays. We go to replays. Royce is down on the outside, and as Riot celebrates in the ring, getting emotional because she's finally won another match, which he recently happening between Andrade and Angel Garza. Charlie Caruso stops Garza, Andrade, and Zelina Vega backstage and asks about getting on the same page for tonight's non-title match. Vega interrupts and talks about the Raw Tag Team Champions, the Street Profits, and possibly not showing up. Andrade also comments on winning tonight to get one step closer to becoming champion. Garza talks to Charlie about always being ready when the Street Profits suddenly attack from behind. They beat Garza and Andrade down while talking trash, then retreat. Vega checks on Garza and Andrade, encouraging them as we go to commercial. Street Profits versus Angel Garza and Andrade. Again. Back from the ring, out comes Raw Tag Team Champions, Street Profits. Montez Ford and Angelo Dawkins. Andrade and Garza are out next with Zelina Vega as Mike Rome does ring introductions for this non-title match. Andrade and Dawkins unload on each other to start the match. Andrade kicks Dawkins in the corner. Andrade stops on Dawkins, and in comes Garza for a quick double team. Garza grounds Dawkins now. Garza with a big kick to the face. Dawkins comes back and levels Garza with a right hand. Garza responds with a knee to the face. Ford tags into a pop from the crowd. Ford runs the ropes with Andrade and hits a big drop kick. Ford yells out as Andrade goes to the floor for a breather. Ford runs the ropes again and leaps out, taking Andrade down on the outside. Ford runs right back into the ring and yells out while shaking the ropes. Back to commercial. Hogan style, or actually Warrior style. Back to the ring, and Ford tags in Dawkins for the double team is on Andrade. Dawkins covers for the 1 count. Dawkins grounds Andrade. Now, while Vega looks on, Ford tags back in and launches himself at Andrade with a big drop kick. Andrade takes Ford to the corner and tags in Garza for some double teaming. Garza unloads with kicks, keeping Ford down. Vega smiles at ringside after Dawkins drops Andrade with a bulldog for a 2 count as Garza makes a save. Dawkins ends up with Andrade on the shoulders as Ford goes up top. This backfires as Dawkins accidentally crosses Ford on the top and Garza runs in to get the upper hand for his team. Garza climbs up top, but Ford ends up knocking him to the mat. Ford follows up with a big frog splash for the pin and the win to retain. Actually, win the match. It wasn't a title shot. After the match, Profit stand tall as music plays. We got to replace the frog splash. Vega screams from ringside as Ford and Dawkins celebrate, taking in the titles and red cups to the announce table. Vega, Andrade, and Garza look on from the ramp, disgusted. And what is their little thing? We won't smoke. Well, I guess they're drinking smoke. Tips cup. A video package with highlights of the match between Women's Tag Team Champion Sasha Banks and Bayley. Sasha Banks and Raw Women's Champion Asuka from the horror show at Extreme Rules on Sunday. So to come segment, Banks' partner, SmackDown Women's Champion Bayley, will face Kairi Sane. And we will hear from Banks and Bayley with an update on what happened in the controversial win. Back for the break, Andrade is talking with Angel Garza backstage. Zelina walks up and yells at them for blowing their chance and getting to the top of the tag team division. Vega says, now, as usual, she has to go and fix everything. Andrade and Garza are frustrated with the loss, but not each other. They insist that they are on the same page, and Vega tells them to prove it. We go to the ring, and out comes the WWE Women's Tag Team Champions, Sasha Banks and Bayley. Banks is in possession of Asuka's women's title belt, and Rome refers to her as champion. Tom continues that Asuka is still champion. The music stops, and the boos get louder. Bayley tells them to show some respect for the new Raw Women's Champion. Banks interrupts and says, she's got this. Banks says, people are accusing her of stealing the Raw Women's title. But she fought for the title last night in Extreme Rules, unlike her opponent, who was just handed her title by Becky Lynch in May. Banks goes on, and now Bayley talks about how she had to do the right thing and make the count at Extreme Rules. Bayley says she is not just your role model, she's Bayley Doschatz. Bayley is repeating herself already. Banks goes on bragging and calls herself Two Bells Banks. They brag some more about having all the gold, jumping around and celebrating. Music interrupts, and out comes the Kabuki Warriors, Kairi Sane, and Raw Women's Champion Asuka without her title. Asuka yells from the stage in Japanese and says Banks has her title. Banks tells her to come and get it. Kabuki Warriors march in the ring as Banks and Bayley get ready for a fight. WWE Chief Brand Officer Stephanie McMahon interrupts on the big screen. Asuka and Sane stop at ringside. Stephanie congratulates everyone. She says last night's match actually was a horror show. Banks might think she's champion, but Stephanie has a different opinion. Stephanie says Banks didn't win last night, but neither did Asuka. Stephanie announces a title match for next week to determine the champion. They can lose by any normal method. Pinfall, DQ, count out, or interference. She wishes them good luck. Next match, and we get Bayley versus Kairi Sane. Back for the break for the non-title match is underway as Kairi Sane goes at it with SmackDown Women's Champion Bayley. Sane mounts offense for an early pin attempt. Bayley drops Sane and starts talking trash. Sane comes back and drop kicks Bayley to the floor. Sane with a hip attack while Bayley is on the apron, which gets a pop from Asuka. Sane follows to the floor and brings Bayley back in the ring for a 2 count. Bayley ends up turning it around in the corner and dropping Sane face first in the top turnbuckle. Bayley beats Sane around, and Sarah and Sasha Banks cheers her on. Bayley with a quick 1 count. The crowd tries to rally for Sane now as Bayley has her grounded in the middle of the ring. Sane fights up and out, hitting her crossbody in the middle of the ring for a 2 count. Bayley counters and mounts Sane with strikes. Bayley with another quick pin attempt. Bayley with suplex for a 2 count. More back and forth between the two. Sane overpowers and blocks another suplex. Sane with an axe kick. Sane goes up top, hits a big flying splash while Bayley is hung up in the ropes. Bayley ends up regrouping with Banks on the outside. It was a good commercial. Back for the break. Sane unloads in the corner. Sane with a sliding forearm while Bayley is down. Bayley comes right back and drops Sane on her arm for a quick pin attempt. Bayley wraps Sane's arm around the ropes and works her over now. After all, this is not the disqualification match. We see Shayna Baszler backstage watching the match. Charlie asks her if she has an interest in the match. Baszler says she's beaten everyone out there and still doesn't have a match. What do you want her to do? Sit in catering? She says nobody deserves the spotlight more than she does. So yes, she does have a vested interest in this match. The same way a shark has a vested interest anytime it sees prey in the water. We go back to focusing on the action as Bayley lifts Sane for a suplex, but Sane counters and drops Bayley on her head with a big DDT. Sane ducks a clothesline and mounts more offense. Sane with a blockbuster and a drop kick as Asuka cheers her on. Sane with a sliding knee as the crowd rallies. Sane goes to the top, but Bayley cuts her off and climbs up herself. Bayley ends up tying Sane's arm up in the ropes, but Sane drops her. Bayley is now tied up in the ropes in the corner. Sane goes to the top, hits a double stomp. Sane is slow to make the cover, and Bayley kicks out of 2. More back and forth between the two. Sane hits a spinning back fist and hits the interceptor to bring Bayley back down. Sane goes back up top, hits an insane elbow drop. Sane clutches her arm after landing hard. She slowly makes the cover, but Bayley gets her foot on the bottom rope. Bayley ends up hitting the Bayley to back suplex in the middle of the ring. Bayley goes up top, hits a flying elbow drop of her own. Bayley covers, but Sane kicks out at 2. Asuka cheers Sane on at ringside. Bayley goes for the Bayley to belly suplex, but Sane blocks it and rolls Bayley up out of nowhere for the pin and the win. And your new number 1 contender, Kairi Sane, to the SmackDown title. After the match, crowd pops big for Sane as Asuka joins her in the ring to celebrate. Kabuki Warriors go to ramp as we get replays. They look on as Banks and Bailey regroup in the ring. Shriver approaches WWE Champion Drew McIntyre backstage and asks how he's feeling after the brutal win over Dolph Ziggler Extreme Rules. Drew admits being in pain, but says he's still WWE Champion. So that's good. He's headed to the ring right now to discuss his future. Drew walks off as he goes to commercial. Back to the ring, Tom announces guests for Raw Talk tonight. Mustafa Ali, Seth Rollins, and Shayna Baszler. We go back to the ring. Out comes Drew McIntyre, your WWE Champion, to a pop. Drew takes a shot at Dolph Ziggler and says his Extreme Rules stipulation was brilliant. But that's over, as is Dolph's career. Drew goes on and says it's onward and upwards for him. Drew says the next big event is SummerSlam, and he wants a worthy opponent. Music hits, out comes Ziggler again to boos. Drew says that opponent surely isn't Ziggler. Ziggler marches to the ring and says he saw something in Drew last night, something he doesn't always see, fear. Ziggler goes on and enters the ring, but Drew interrupts him. Ziggler keeps talking about their feud, but Drew tries to dismiss him because he just beat him last night. Ziggler goes on about seeing fear in Drew's face. Drew says Ziggler is just embarrassing himself, and he's starting to feel bad for him. Drew ends up dropping Ziggler with a Glasgow chest headbutt in the segment. But Drew barks a few words at Ziggler and then exits the ring as his music plays. Ziggler looks up from the mat. He yells at Drew, telling him not to walk away from him. You son of a B-word. Ziggler rants about being deserved that match. He could feel it slipping away from Drew. Ziggler doesn't give a dang about the time or place or stipulation. Drew can have any match he wants with Ziggler. Drew says Ziggler has changed his mind. He accepts if he can pick the stipulation. Drew turns and walks away without naming the match. Ziggler stops him and asks what the stipulation is. Drew says he just said yes, and he hasn't decided on the stipulation yet. After all, Ziggler did the same thing until Extreme Rules. Drew says he's going to do Ziggler exactly what he did to him. Rebuild a stipulation right before the pay-per-view, right before the bell rings. Music hits again as Drew stares Ziggler down from the ramp. Smirking at him, Drew winks back at Ziggler and makes his exit. Big Show is backstage talking about tonight's unsanctioned match with Randy Orton. He talks about what Orton has done to Edge and Christian as of late. How he's lashing out at everyone who's tried to help him. A boring Big Show goes on and on without saying much. Show says this might be the end of the line for him, but he's going to do anything he can to make sure Orton doesn't write the end of his story. This has to be the worst TV show on right now. Back to commercial. Back to the rate. And now announces hype. Sasha Banks versus Asuka for the title next week. The title can be decided by pinfall, submission, count out, or DQ, including outside interference, as announced by Stephanie McMahon. Could that be your interference to set up a match with Kairi Sane and Asuka? Possible. But that match could also go the other way too on SmackDown, because this coming week you got Kairi Sane against Bayley. Unsanctioned Banks Big Show versus Randy Orton. We go to the ring for tonight's unsanctioned main event. As Big Show makes his way out, Tom reminds us that WWE is not responsible for what might happen in this match and is not sanctioned by the company. Randy Orton was out next. The bell rings and Show goes right for Orton, but Orton dodges him. Show ends up knocking Orton into the corner, hitting him with body shots. Show keeps the choke and hits Orton with chops and more strikes in another corner. Show keeps the choke, hits a huge spear for a pop. Orton rolls right to the 4-4 reader. Show brings the table into the ring now. Show ends up attacked at ringside by Andrade and Angel Garza as the crowd boos. Zelina Vega applauds from the stage as they launch Show into the steel ring steps. Andrade and Garza hold Show up as Orton backs up to prepare for the running attack. But before Orton can strike, Andrade and Garza let go of Show as the Viking Raiders run down to make the save. Eric and Ivar brawl with the Garza and Andrade at ringside as we go to commercial. Back for the break. Show fights up out of a hole. Show drops Orton with a big headbutt. Tom confirms Ziggler versus McIntyre for next Monday with the WWE title on the line. So we don't get the SummerSlam match. We get next week. Drew will get to pick the stipulation. Show runs over Orton with a few stiff shots. Show with a back smash in the corner. Orton comes right back and takes Show's knee out with a drop kick. Orton calls for a punt kick, but Show grabs him and delivers a choke slam in the middle of the ring. Orton kicks out of two. Show calls for the KO punch, but Orton avoids it and rolls to the floor for a breather. Crowd boos. Show grabs Orton by his head and launches him into the ring from the floor. Orton hits hard on the mat and is still down as Show stalks him. Show places Orton on the table that's standing up near the corner. Show goes to the second rope for the Vader bomb, but Orton moves and Show crashes through the table. Orton looks on and smiles, laughing at Show. Show gets up and Orton drops him in the middle of the ring with the RKO. Show still kicks out of two. Orton yells at the referee as he can't believe Show kicked out in time. The referee checks on Show as Orton goes back out and brings in a steel chair from under the ring. Boos continue from the talent in the crowd. Orton with a steel chair shot to the gut, then over the back to bring Show back down. The boos get even louder after another big chair shot to the back while Show is down. Orton stares down at Show as he tries to get up. Referee clears the table. Debris from the ring. Orton with more chair shots. Orton goes for the top rope. JP DDT. Yeah, top rope. JP DDT. It's over the second rope. Now as he nails it. The boos get even louder as the referee checks on Show. Orton tosses the chair to the floor and hits the mat, preparing for another RKO while Show slowly recovers. Show gets back up, and Orton immediately puts him right back down with the RKO, and this time Orton covers for the pin and the win. After the match, Orton stands tall in the middle of the ring as his music plays. The crowd boos him again, and the boos get even louder. Orton stalks Show from behind. Now, while Show is trying to bring himself up with the ropes, Orton backs up and then charges, connecting with a punt kick to the head. Orton gets down and shows face and talks some more trash, saying he's like all the others, and this is just one more legend down. Orton stands back up as the boos continue. Orton climbs the corner, poses the rope to close out the show. And that concludes my raw results. Thanks again. Peace out. See you on the video. And if you don't know, brothers and sisters, just call me